Aloha, ladies and gentlemen, welcome, and today we are doing an Evaluate the Epic with Azzoth, Brimstone Prince. Azzoth is by far one of my favorite champions, so I'm going to say this now. This video is going to be incredibly biased. I think he is terrific design, and I even like the fact that he has a built-in defect that you eventually can get around. I think it is terrific game design. I love his voice lines. I love the voice actor for him. I love him aesthetically. So throughout this video, if anybody's like, wow, he's really rating Azzoth very high, I am wonderfully biased again to Azzoth. So with that being said, let's get into it. So Azzoth here, he is a single target damage mage, and specifically, he is about burst damage and burning down your enemies. So in terms of attack, he's got a little bit higher than average because he is single target. However, it isn't so like fantastic that you're gonna like super notice his attack stat at 3,600. Around 35 is kind of the good number for most people to shoot for. He is a cost of 18. I will say this now in this video. The more champions I review, it feels like some of their champions have a guideline on what their price should be. And then other champions, the price seems to be out the window or doesn't seem to be a factor in how they create a champion. But 18 I do think is fair for him. But he is a single target mage, not your AoE mage. And his attack interval is 2.6 seconds, which is normal. Rage regen is 14, which is normal. Alright, so for skills, I might sneeze here, and I apologize. I'm getting over an illness. Deals 100% damage to one enemy. Inflicts burning on the target upon critical hits. And this can scale up to 110% damage to one enemy. So, you know, bread and butter skill, I like it. I like the fact that it can inflict burning on critical hits. And what makes him a lot of fun for me is when you're first starting to play the game, you don't really have access to crits reliably. So as you get gear, like at the very beginning of the game, and then you're starting to equip him with gear, or if you're working on like your dragon team or something and you realize that you want to stack burning effects, this is a champion that absolutely fits the bill, and it feels phenomenal. Next, his passive, because his passive doesn't just work off of his ultimate. When the hero lands a critical hit with his basic attack, there is a 25% chance, and that scales up to 35% chance, to deal extra damage equal to 70% of his attack, scaling up to 100% of his attack. So basically, you know, when you have him fully dusted up, you have a 35% chance to just deal double damage, which I think feels phenomenal, right? When we talk about burst damage, this is a very good version of burst damage of, cool, your basic attack is hitting for 110, and then you just have a chance to do an extra 100% damage. That feels great. Now for one of the best names of something I've ever heard. Paradise Blood. So, Paradise Blood, it is, when activated, increases his critical damage by 80% and crit rate by 20%. This lasts for 20 seconds. His crit rate continues to increase by 5% per second for 20 seconds, or until the hero crits 10 times. Now, obviously for a lot of players, this, like, you know, the fact that you'll turn off your own ultimate after critting 10 times might be a huge turnoff. I will say in the earlier stages of the game, you're not going to have the attack speed where you're attacking more than once every 2 seconds. So majority of the time you are going to get the full duration out of this. For more advanced players or players playing with things like attack speed on more of their characters, or if you just get the lucky gear rolls, right? Yes, you can get to that point where you could turn off your ultimate at like 13 or 15 seconds. Again, I don't see that as a huge deal. However, if you want to get the full 20 seconds out of it, there is a way to get around this. Alright, so as we skill him up, we can increase the duration by 5 seconds and then by 10 seconds in total. So it would go from 20 seconds lasting 30 seconds. this is where being able to stop this defect does matter quite a bit. Next, we can increase his critical damage by 20% and then an additional 20%, so a total of 40%. So we would scale from 80 up to 120%. Finally, we have his initial rage plus 100 and then his ultimate skill cost minus 100. Something I will warn players about is I recently did a video talking about rage regen, and because of we're talking about rage regen, we do end up talking about your rage cost and whatnot. Azzoth ultimately ends at 900, which I would argue is in the longer cast, meaning it will take you a much longer time to reach it compared to other champions at like 500 to 600 or anything lower than that would be very, very fast. So understand that you have this single target mage. However, during his ultimate, right, if we want to think about this, for 30 seconds in total is what he's going to be in this ult for. For 30 seconds, his damage is effectively increased by 120% because his crit damage is increased, and his crit rate goes up by 20% and then keeps going up. So it's one of those things you are guaranteed to be critting non-stop. What's fun about this is that this means that this is a champion that if you want to, you absolutely don't have to worry about going up to 100% crit rate. You can build him at 80% crit rate, and because his ultimate gives him that extra 20, you're not really ever going to notice you not critting consistently. I can see this being a turnoff for more veteran players because, like what more often than not, we're going to build our champions up to 100% crit rate, or we don't want their basic attack to ever miss this burning effect. So I will say it is the unfortunate thing, but it's not that huge of a deal. Let's get into his awakenings. So Awakening 1 recovers 10% of his rage every 3 critical hits landed. I absolutely love this because not only does it encourage you to build him like in a certain way, but the game even understands we wanted him to be built this way. We want you to be critting non-stop with this champion. We want this champion to feel very rewarded for critical hitting. So I absolutely love this. And this alone, I would say, takes you from that 900 cost, right? If you consider 10% of 900 is 90, that is amazing, right? Like that is every 3 critical hits. And if you get his critical hit rate up to like 80 or above, you're going to be getting that every like 5 to 6 seconds, depending on how fast you have his attack speed. Here, critical rate, plus 5%. So now there's the argument you even less need that 80. You could probably just get him up to around 75. And then as you awaken him, that would push him to 80. His ult pushes him to 100. Use your best judgment on that, but either way, you now need less critical rate for him, which I do enjoy. Paradise Blood no longer limits the number of critical hits. This is absolutely phenomenal. I absolutely love this. This is such good game design. I know that there's going to be players who are like upset that like, why couldn't they just build him without the defect? That's the thing, guys. That to me is terrific game design. When you have a champion that comes out and the champion has no weakness or no problem to them, they just seem like Superman. And unfortunately, like, I know that there's some of us out there that still love things like the Superman movie, but if your main hero doesn't have a chance of dying or being defeated, you might as well be watching God, you know, create the earth, or watching paint dry. There's no conflict to it. I absolutely love this. I think this is really, really good game design. Here, all damage plus 5%. Now, because it says all damage, I actually do assume this means that when he burns an enemy, they are taking additional burning damage. I haven't been able to confirm that yet because my Azoth is not awakened at all, and I've been very sad about it for a very long time. And then his final awakening, and this is the one where I think players could stay away from for a while, but if you get it, it's going to be helpful. When Paradise of Blood is in effect, targets hit with critical attacks will infect surrounding enemies within 1 tile with burning. This is obviously very good because it does give him some AoE agency. However, for you to awaken him to +5, and then it's only a burning effect, I still haven't found a single scenario where I want this specifically. Like the only thing I could ever mention is maybe in things like Gear Raid 1 where everything gets like super condensed and piled on one another. But I hate to say this, like 90% of the time, even if you have this, I don't foresee this being a thing. And then in general, you're not really bringing him to your AoE content. Most of the time, you're going to be bringing him to like boss battles. So, or at least that's my opinion. As much as I love him, I do think that majority of the time players are going to, this is going to be a boss killing champion, much like Idril, except that he's on the magic side of things. So if you can get him in a position where he can be attacking the boss, he's going to melt through the boss very reliably. So, where is Azzoth going to be best at, now that we've talked about his kit? So, because he's single target, we do kind of have to change how we think about it. Yes, he's going to be perfectly fine through the campaign, but as a single target champion, understand that we might want his damage to be a lot higher than like everybody else. And the unfortunate thing is, in the campaign, a lot of the times we either A, don't have the gear for that or the levels for that, but then B, there's a lot of times where there's like 3 to 4 enemies being summoned, so your AoE champions are going to feel a bit better. So in the campaign, I will argue in any of the levels where you have a boss or some of the bigger, bulkier monsters, I think I can actually show these off. Yeah, if you have guys like this, like so this is a demon soldier, the stitched carrion. For these bigger, bulkier enemies that have a lot of HP, your burning is going to slowly shred them down, and it's going to feel amazing. So for any of your single target high HP champions, he's going to feel great, or anything with a high defense, Azzoth is going to feel amazing. When it comes to the arena, your single target arena, and I could even argue the sustained arena, could be a very amazing place for him, especially with those burnings. Burnings do stack, so ideally you could actually come up with 5 champions that all have burning on them. So like Zillatu, Wrath, Azzoth, Nasalt, and I don't know who else has a burning, but you get my point. So you could stack on tons of burning, and that would just be, like, effectively, across 5 different burnings, 100% burn damage per second, just slowly whittling away at something's HP. It would be super sustained DPS. When it comes to the AoE arena, or the flying arena, both of these I don't really encourage for Azzoth. There is a very, very small argument I could make for the aerial arena for the single targets. I think that's stretching it. So unless you 6-star Azzoth as your first champion, I also kind of don't encourage this. I do think an AoE champion is a much better first option. But if, like me, you fall in love with him and you're like, I want to 6-star him immediately, you could. You absolutely could. In the Void Rift, there's a lot of bosses in the Void Rift, and there's also a lot of big, bulky enemies in the Void Rift. So as long as you place him in the proper lane, he's going to be amazing. Or if you feel like you're struggling killing the big bulky things, like if you have an AoE mage that you're like, man, my AoE mage, it's doing damage to this thing, but it's just not killing it fast enough. Azzoth is actually a very good example of a champion who will absolutely do wonderful in here. All right, raids. We're going to go through these quickly. Again, some of the comments I get back is I spend too much time talking about these. So marksman, again, he's not a marksman, so no, not the best place to bring him unless for experience. In mages and endurance, he's absolutely amazing in both of these. His burning and the endurance couples with the poison, so you end up just melting things really, really fast in that. In the mages, everything is physically resistant, so he's absolutely brilliant. And there's a lot of big, bulky boys, so we will be showing that off here in a moment. In melee attack, I don't encourage this. You start off with limited platforms, And then as your platforms get thinner and thinner, I would just argue have an AoE mage, so not the best place for him, again, unless you just need experience on him. Guild Boss, absolutely phenomenal, right? This is going to be one of Azzoth's best homes, especially if you can get his Awakening up to 3. If you get his Awakening up to 3, Guild Boss is going to be his forever home, and he's going to feel amazing in there. Artifact Material Raid, kind of like the Melee Promotion Raid, you can absolutely use him, and he will be good at helping you melt down the boss. It was Salazar. I don't know the new boss's name yet, but we'll keep calling him Salazar until I know what that name is. He will be okay at helping you kill the boss, and with Azzoth being single target focused, this will feel really good. But again, as you lose platforms, I would encourage you just switch over to a healer. Depend on your fighters. That's what the design aspect of this level is. For Tide is kind of a complex thing. I don't love him here because you have so much AoE going on. However, there are some big bosses, so having some single target damage is useful. And on a bunch of my, in a lot of my Tide designs, I do have single target champions all the way back, like in terms of a platform champion, all the way on the far left guarding the gate. So whatever gets through all my AoE or gets through my defenders, I will have a strong single target thing to kill off whatever is attacking the gate. So I don't think that he has no place in Tide. Once you get him up to A5, I would argue he'd probably be perfectly fine in Tide, doing burning damage to everything. It's probably going to feel good. Ichiban, what server am I on? I'm on the general server. Resource raid. I don't love him here for the resource raids. The argument that I will say Azzoth is very good on both of these is for your single target damage for the enemies that have a lot of HP. Azzoth does just melt things with all of his crit, him being a crit hit champion, him being a crit damage champion. He's very obvious on how you want to build him. We didn't really talk about that earlier, but obviously things like attack percentage, crit rate, and crit damage, those matter the most. And then I would say either flat attack or attack speed will make him feel amazing. Gear raids. Gear raid 1, there's a small, very small argument to bring him in here. I don't think this is his best place. Gear raid 2, I think out of the gear raids would probably feel the best at killing the Russian golems or killing off the boss when the boss starts to walk down. But the boss also has very low HP, so I don't know. Gear raid 2, I have very mixed feelings on. Gear raid 3, absolutely not. Everything's magically resistant. I would argue if you don't have enough piercers, yes, bring him, because at least his single target damage and crit rate and crit damage, you have a higher chance of doing more damage, but it's not going to feel amazing. Faction trials. Both of these are really good for him. So the basic trial, you do need mages to get 3 stars on a lot of the levels, and a lot of the things are heavily armored, or they're like skeletons that are physically resistant. So he has a very good place here. There's also never like swarms of enemies, even like on the later levels. You often are only needing to kill off 1 to 2 things at a time. So I actually do really, really enjoy him for the basic trial. For the Infernals, I would actually argue he is a must. It's ironic, yesterday I was super sick, and I finally 6-starred my Azzoth and Pyros to do my Trial of Infernal, but because I moved gear around, I was like, I'll do it later, and I ended up being so sick I just slept the day away. So unfortunately, I'm doing this video a day late, and in this case, $1 short. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is Azzoth. Let me know what you think of him. I think he's absolutely brilliant. I love all aspects of his design. If this game was like a MOBA, I would absolutely be playing Azzoth and seeing like how much you could nuke something down. I think he would be an incredible... I think he is an incredible champion in this game, and then I think he's just an incredible design overall. Like everything he says and does in this game, I absolutely love it. Ladies and gentlemen, if you like this video, go ahead and hit the like and subscribe button. That really helps out Sunday here to sleep on my lap more often. If you want to join us over at twitch.tv/sprinklebeard, I stream every day, Sunday through Wednesday, semi-reliably. And this week is Thanksgiving week, so I'm going to be off from work, and that means I will be streaming much more often. Thank you guys very much for watching, but of course, until that next time, ta-ta.